What was the weirdest thing the weird kid did at school? The guy that growled at everyone and seriously wouldn't speak to a single person no matter how nice. They eventually came to school one day dressed in all black, and he's a huge chain, like one for an anchor on a big boat-sized chain around his neck. Wore that for a while, and we asked him why, and he flung it off his neck and held it like a weapon and just went, "That's why," and that's the first time anyone heard him speak. Pretty sure he's actually a really cool person now that grew out of that sort of thing. Showing us a video he uploaded to YouTube of him cutting his poop in half with a hanger as it was laying in the toilet bowl. He heard that you'd automatically get suspended if you peed your pants at school. He wanted to find out if it was true. Peed his pants, got suspended. In high school, this kid would regularly pick his nose and eat it in class. He was also caught masturbating to girls in the school library and on a school bus. He got suspended for a week and had to register as a sex offender. Had a kid nicknamed Cheeseburger in the grade ahead of me in high school. He got his nickname because when it was time for his class to go to lunch, he snuck into the roof and crawled his way into the cafeteria, dropped down and proceeded to steal all the cheeseburger put out for lunch. Unfortunately, they caught him in the act and sent him to the principal's office. A year later, he was caught stealing a teacher's computer, and in the process of being arrested he bit the officer's hand, getting him sent to juvie, never to be heard of again. In 6th grade, the weird kid in my class removed all the heads from her Bratz dolls and transformed them into what she thought looked like tribal shrunken heads. She presented one to her teacher on the last day of class for him to hang on his indoor miniature potted tree. It's still there, 15-something years later. Plot twist: the weird kid was me. Humping on the giant Christmas tree from the 2nd floor balcony. That was the last time they put a Christmas tree on our school. He got mad that he didn't understand how to play a game at lunchtime, so he started hitting and punching the nearest person to him, who happened to be me. When I shoved him away and asked him what the hell was he doing, he whipped his dick out, charged at me, and when I shoved him away from me again he started crying and ran away with his member still sticking out. We had a guy who wore a dragon tail, believing he was a dragon, and same story for a different guy, but his thing was wearing a cat bell. There were lots of rumors about the cat bell guy. In 1st grade there was this kid who stood by the sink in the back of the classroom eating bits of those brown paper towels. The teacher was constantly telling him to stop eating them and go back to his seat. His locker only ever had 3 things in it: his American flag cape, one of those foldable Razor scooters, and a box turtle. A wild kid activated a fire hose and started blasting everyone that came his way. Students, teachers, didn't matter. He once asked me to play spies with him, knowing he didn't play with many people. I said yes. He took me on a mission around the school, before coming to a stop in front of bushes, pulling his pants all the way down and then started peeing in the bushes. At that point I was out. Weird kid in elementary was a self-proclaimed alien. Once, while waiting for the bus, she told me, "On my planet we eat people like you," and proceeded to bite me. We later became friends in high school and she used to give me massages during lunch break in the quad. Just realized now she was slightly tenderizing me. He brought a blow-up doll to our farewell dance, senior prom in the USA, as his date, complete with fishnets and everything. Edit: he was also wearing a kilt. We aren't from Scotland. I dated the weird kid in high school and even a few years after, and the weirdest thing he did was try to date his cousin ... While we were together, he almost so ate grass and him and his friends would talk about the flesh planet. I hated my life back then. This was in 96-97. We had a bomb threat and all had to go to the football stadium. One of the special ed kids that had started the Macarena and had the entire school going, and then this one kid that dressed weird ran out on the field with his friend in front of everyone and they started kissing. This was 96-97, so it started a huge mess. People were trying to beat him up and the administrators had to take them away. Meanwhile, there were still some people trying to keep the Macarena alive. Was a strange day. Edit date had wrong date. Was my freshman year. Link for proof. Female number 4. The list is endless, but one incident sticks out in my mind. The boy was getting told off by the teacher and instead of taking it on the chin, he decided to jump on the table, shout "I'm out of here" and proceed to run full pelt into a steel beam that was supporting the roof. Knocked himself out cold. Was a fun lesson by all accounts. One girl used to gallop around the playground on her own, pretending she was a horse. This is at too old an age for the rest of us to be doing this. Think 14-15. She got a medicine degree and is doing her surgical training at the moment. I bumped into her in a hospital after over a decade. All I could think of to say was, "Do you still love horses?" She laughed and said she had her own horse now. Figures. LOL. Had this weird kid in my class who was otherwise okay but just would do really unexplainable stuff. He once opened his lunchbox in class and threw the contents right onto the overhead ceiling fan. It was something liquidy and greenish. Hit the spinning fan. Splashed down all over us, the walls, the board. The poor teacher got the worst rain down on his face. As a punishment, the entire class was made to clean the classroom. Surprisingly, we were not mad at him. We all had a real good laugh at it. He drove around the basketball courts, following the lines, on an imaginary bus. He'd stop to let people get on, off the bus and then drive them to their stops, and we walked in a line behind him. When he stopped walking, he'd mimic the door opening and closing and wouldn't let you on, off if you didn't wait for the signal. Salutations, Ben the bus driver. I hope you achieved your dreams. Edit. Wow, a lot of messages asking for more info. To clear it up, this was in Australia and he was between the ages of 8-13 when I knew him. We all got on the bus because when no one did, he'd drive around looking sad. He did this all the time. Not once and not sporadically. Anytime he was outside, he was imitating a bus driver. Sharpened a pencil super sharp, muzzle loaded it into the recorder, covered all the holes and blow-gunned it at another kid. The pencil went between his eyeball and socket, so fortunately he kept his sight. Similarly, after I switched schools, this happened before I arrived so I didn't actually see it. A girl used blue tack to stick a short and very sharp pencil on a kid's seat. He sat on it and it punctured the skin right next to his asshole, then perforated his rectum. Needed emergency surgery. In 4th grade, one kid got so angry at something, maybe the work we were doing, he gripped his pencil as hard as he could, started yelling, moaning, and stuck the sharp end of the pencil square into his forehead. Had the weird kid in high school asked the teacher to use the bathroom. She said no and this dude legit stabbed his hand with the pencil. Went all the way through, then asked if he could now. Shit was wild. Edited. Also, to add to this, this was Pearl High School in Mississippi. This was the school Luke Woodhome shot and killed his girlfriend and her friend at the school. This kid stabbed himself with a pencil about 2 months after that happened. This was late 1997. You know how there's horse girls? This girl was obsessed with babies, like being a mom or even acting like a baby. I already knew her as the weird girl. Then I got paired up with her for a semester as lab partners. Let me tell you, she was so much weirder than I thought. Constant questions about if I wanted to be a mom too and my body. She always had a pacifier with her, and would constantly chew or suck on it. She would switch between mommy days and baby days. Like one day she would come in and act like a mother, talk about her baby in extreme detail. Other days she would come in and just baby talk. It was so cringy. Things got significantly worse when she found out I was a babysitter. After that she became obsessed with me. Ran out of the class and I guess attempted to leave school or something. A bunch of teachers chased him. I could hear running out in the halls and teachers asking where he went. The door to the class was closed but there was a window. Quite a bit later I look up and I see him at the little window and he just looks at us and licks the window and runs away again, and I see a couple teachers run after. Okay, so I had a kid at my school. Not particularly bad but just annoyed the everything out of me. Because I was the only one nice to him, he would follow me everywhere, randomly grab me for no reason, hug me and not give me any personal space. But here comes the worst part. We have school swimming lessons, and you could either get changed in the change rooms or the toilets/showers. Since I'm a shy person, I would always use the showers to get changed. Figures he followed me in there, got dressed outside my door, and just when I was leaving my cubicle, he was just there, dancing naked. I died inside that day. There are two that come to my mind. It just so happens that they were also good friends with each other. The first one I remember chasing girls around the school with his penis out. This was when we were pre-teens. The second guy joined our class when we were early teens, and the two became best friends. One time, the teacher said something to the line of the back table, out, because they were annoying her. These two fuckers decided to open the window and throw the table out. Edit: when I say preteen I mean around 8 or 9. In my native language you become a teenager at 11. I sometimes forget that in English it's 13 and up. The weird kid in my school, who was also a friend of mine, had really bad dry scalp during the winter months. He would vigorously rub his hair to get some relief from the itchiness, and in the process would end up with lots of dead skin on his desk. One girl looked over as he was doing this and loudly said, and he, wanting to make a statement, gathered up all the dead skin in a line-shaped pile and snorted it like it was a massive line of cocaine. He was kicked out of class. There was a girl that pretended to be a horse and make horse noises, and she also would draw pictures of all the guys' faces in detention with their bodies as half goat, horse with very detailed massive male genitalia. She was a really good artist, lol. Interestingly enough, this weird kid was actually really well liked by people at school. He was in the track team and was an insanely fast distance runner. We were pretty good friends in high school and we went to the same summer fine arts camp every year. The funniest thing he ever did was in geometry class freshman year. Our teacher was explaining planes to us and how because 3 points always form a plane, a three-legged table will never wobble. Cue the weird kid standing up, challenge accepted. Next Monday he comes in dragging a giant table into class. Over the weekend, he had built a table with 3 legs and springs between the flat tabletop and the legs so that if you put a glass on it, it would wobble and fall over. Our teacher found it so funny that he kept the table in his classroom for the whole year. At my middle school, someone decided to get a little attention with a good old-fashioned bomb threat, except they thought that a bomb threat meant literally writing bomb threat somewhere. Worse yet, they misspelled the fuck out of it, and wrote boom threat, so we had to go on a brief, very awkward lockdown while the police checked the perimeter for booms. We had a kid who liked to pretend he was an actual Jedi. I remember one time before gym class he was meditating in the locker room when one of the big football players started to yell at him that he wasn't a Jedi. He was unflinching. The saddest part, his last name was Bates, which it didn't take people long to call him Master Bates. I actually went to church with this kid in his senior year at a youth gathering. He admitted to everyone that he wasn't actually a Jedi. We were shocked. Edit: senior year in the US is about 17-18 years old typically. We had an unofficial Harry Potter fan club in high school and Deathly Hallows had just been released. Someone started this whole gossip rumor that Harry dies at the end, which he actually does, but of course a lot goes on after that which the fan club didn't know about. One of the girls heard about it and tried to commit suicide by throwing herself off the 3rd-story building. We all saw it, and 2 of the male teachers had to get her off the window while she was screaming, "If Harry is dead, I have no purpose." Needless to say, she got suspended and the club was disbanded. Wow. I didn't expect this much of response. To answer some, this isn't in US and it was a convent all-girls school. In elementary school I was the weird kid. I stacked all the chairs in my classroom like a pyramid. I got away with this because my school opened up early to let kids in. We were supposed to be in the cafeteria. I know my class was left unlocked. Not the first time I snuck out of the cafeteria to look around unsupervised and get away from other people. It took me about 45 minutes. Only like 15 kids in that class saw not a lot of chairs. I thought it was the funniest thing ever at the time. Everyone else did not. I still get a slight chuckle out of it, still kind of weird. I actually stacked lots of different things and often in places or into shapes they probably shouldn't be. That one kid once went for a poop. He collected it in a bottle, put milk on it and went back into the classroom with his bottle of cocoa. He then proceeded to offer it to others, and to the teacher. He is a senior physician now. Being weird did not harm him. A guy I knew in high school had a mouse living in his car, not a pet mouse or anything, just a wild mouse. He would intentionally leave food in the backseat for it. I almost didn't believe it until I saw the thing run under the seat when he opened the door. He almost wore this full cow suit to school one time, which freaked an autistic kid who had a specific fear of cows. There was a lot of debate if he wore it to freak the kid out or if he wore it just to be weird. He's a youth pastor now. He called in a fake bomb threat because he was bored. The police showed up and cuffed him in front of the whole classroom. He was suspended for 2 months, during which he had to sit in an empty classroom being watched by the principal herself. He told me afterwards that she asked him all kinds of weird questions, like what poppers are and how they work. So I think the weird kid was outwitted by the principal. I'll add another anecdote because people seem intrigued by the story. A day or so before the bomb threat, he showed the class his disgusting, moldy lunchbox that had been lying in his desk for weeks. When the cops arrested him, they searched his stuff including his desk. When they took out this lunchbox, the whole class burst out laughing. The cops were very confused. A kid I grew up with started wearing homemade chainmail to school our freshman year of high school, every day, for all 4 years. He was always pretty odd, but he was nice enough. Plus we had a few classes together through middle school and we had connected over a shared love of a few video games. So I felt comfortable asking him why he started wearing it all of a sudden. He proceeded to explain the defensive benefits of chainmail versus both sharp and blunt instruments of harm. For like 5 solid minutes, daggers, pikes, hammers, even how curved blades like katana and falchions would struggle against it. I basically just shrugged and told him I mean, makes sense, and we both went to our classes. I don't know what I expected, but I guess it wasn't the basic defensive benefits that armor offers. Wow. Thank you all. This is a much more widespread phenomenon than I had thought. This all took place in Wyoming, before it ceased being, for all the people wondering if it was their own nightly scholar. He carried a briefcase around and everyone was always wary of him. One day, my sister and I told him to open it. A crowd had started to form as he slowly opened the briefcase. Inside he carried a ventriloquist doll. It was super weird. This one kid wore cheap button-down collar shirts to school every day, and he would only ever button the top button and let the shirt billow around him when he walked. He would stated that he was convinced by doing this every day it would catch on and he'd start a trend in the school and be popular. He was forever alone on that hill lol. He was obsessed with Texas Chainsaw Massacre and said he'd shoot up the school if he could. We were vaguely afraid he'd go all Jason Voorhees on our asses. This was 10-15 years before Columbine, so no one took him seriously and he never did come after everyone at summer camp or a reunion, so we're probably safe.